Yeah, I also think like that there's still 2 more proposals coming about the issuance of atoms. One of them is going to be to remove the 7% floor, and one of them to adjust the inflation change rate. So I think those 2 are still coming. And then we have, I think, also effort capital's proposals, the LST tax, and those kind of things that would also accrue value for Atom and basically also change a little bit the game. So I also want to talk to you about, because now it's been how much, 7-8 months did you run the DAO? What were your top learnings from, like, on the one hand, running a DAO, being structured in this decentralized way? I know you guys all have different backgrounds, you're in different locations, you also have, some of you guys were part-time, some of you full-time. How was it just like managing that DAO? And then also, what learnings did you have along the way about challenges you saw on the Cosmos Hub itself, things you saw where like this is something where the Cosmos Hub really lags behind other ecosystems like Solana, for example, or Avalanche?
Yeah, maybe I can start here as a part-time worker, and then Yusuf can provide some more color. I think in general, it was my first experience working in a DAO, so plenty of learnings there. DAOs can be messy. I think most people know that. Our DAO is not your typical type of DAO. Of course, we're voted in as like a group, and then we work together instead of token sort of weighted governance. So we have a very fair system of governance, which has been set up by Yusuf. But even still, I think sort of Yusuf found out during his time at AADAO that, like, I guess managing a bunch of part-time workers isn't always the easiest. Of course, I have my full-time role right now at Chorus, also helping out at AADAO, but many other people were in the same boat as me. And I think, yeah, it's quite hard coordinating. I was actually going to mention as well, like our team call, because we're based literally all around the world, someone's always struggling. So I can say right now, team calls are quite often at 12 or 1 a.m. for me in Europe. So definitely like not the easiest to coordinate from like an actual synchronous point. But yeah, I think one thing that Yusuf sort of mentioned to me when we were chatting was, you know, we could do with more full-time contributors, bigger support network for Yusuf especially, and also just like sort of managing and also organizing various aspects of the DAO. So I think that's sort of one reason why we've chosen this time to onboard more full-time people to the DAO, which I think will make it a lot stronger because there's more attention and dedicated focus to the DAO's activities. And I'm sure Yusuf can provide more context there. But I think in general, like if I think of my role, I came in as a sort of grant issuer, and a lot of stuff we ended up doing was to do with sort of the grant multi-sig. And I think it's fair to say everyone in our DAO can probably agree that like multi-sig and DAO activities in Cosmos in general, not just the hub, is like very nascent, far more nascent than I think most other ecosystems. Like it's very hard for us to come together and sign sometimes, and quite often we would sign using like CLI, of course, which I think Yusuf didn't expect when he proposed the DAO. So a lot of us had to learn CLI. You know, shout out to Luke from Delphi. I think he was really pivotal at the start, setting this all up when it was really hard, bad UX, still is really bad UX, to be honest. There's a decent notional multi-sig, which we use sometimes, but it doesn't cover everything. So I think one big learning, I think for the Cosmos as well in general, is that like DAO tooling needs to get way better. And we sometimes give grants for this at AADAO, but it's very far behind other ecosystems. That's been really tricky, navigating that and signing various transactions. And then of course, you know, we also hopped on for like Stride transactions or, you know, Neutron, multi-sig, stuff like that. And this took a lot of coordination as well. So like, fortunately, we have DAO coming out. I remember being pitched DAO a long time ago and thinking this would be very amazing for a wide variety of things. So hopefully our issues will be solved in the next mandate. But also, you know, fortunately, AADAO actually did issue that grant to DAO in the first place. So like, I think again here, you know, really reiterating the point that AADAO does actually do a lot of grants, which are hugely beneficial to Cosmos Hub and the Cosmos ecosystem. So hopefully other people can create their own DAOs in the future and not have to go through the same headaches that we've had to go on through as the first sort of DAO on Cosmos Hub. I think it's like, yeah, again, like very unique, our position and our learnings. And I think we're solving a lot of problems that we've had as we go. And then just finally to finish here, I think as Johnny mentioned before, in general, it seems like our grant program is quite strong and teams want to work with us, which puts us in a good position. Of course, you want to sort of mix and match whether or not a team is just good for a grant or if it makes sense to maybe align incentives long term. And so I think a learning for us, especially later on, we were doing some deals, which, we started thinking, maybe it makes sense in the future for us to actually capture like a revenue share from some things. I think actually the way I sort of see this, I know Journey was very involved with some of these transactions, so maybe you can speak more about it in a second. But I think, a big realization for me was that, and especially Journey and some others in the DAO, was just the fact that some of the grants that we would be working on would take a lot of bandwidth at like way more time than your average grant. And I think these types of transactions, or however you want to call them, might be worth the DAO, AADAO taking some sort of revenue share from in the future, just to make sure that our effort is actually worth it. Because otherwise the risk there is we might be doing very important activities and not dedicating time to other smaller projects which deserve the time. But also at the same time, it's important to bring these types of projects to Cosmos Hub. It's so important, in fact, that there's probably some incentive and upside for Cosmos Hub to actually have aligned incentives there. So we actually feel like we're in a good position at some stage to start bringing value back to the hub directly, and also to the DAO. So like if it was an ideal scenario here, probably this would be the last time we would actually go to governance asking for support to like, for the team. And it's sort of like Cosmos Hub giving us a grant to start a grant program. But I think as we go on, we have more ideas for how we can actually bring revenue to this team, and obviously in a fair way. And I'm really excited as well to explore that a bit as well in the next mandate, and make sure Cosmos Hub is getting a good deal, and Atom token holders also making sure that things that are being brought into the Cosmos Hub, like they're receiving a cut of that, which they wouldn't without AADAO's participation as like a sort of intermediary negotiating these deals. So yeah, I'll leave to Johnny and Yusuf here to add on to that.
I can add two more things here. So one, we did not expect that, at least for myself, I ended up with more than 50% of my working time doing non-grant related activities, right? And that was potentially an issue with the scoping. At first, we couldn't know, but we ended up being very stretched because of all the side things that we did for the hub as stewards of the hub, like protocol on liquidity, doing public representation for the hub. And we realized that some grants, like Zave said, required significantly more work than we originally thought. And with the part-time model, that was just not sustainable. And so very quickly, we take the decision during maybe at half the mandate to say, okay, next year we have to move to we have to professionalize. And how do you professionalize? By having a full-time base of contributors. So right now we are myself, Johnny, and Better Future that are full-time, which is roughly 25% or 30% of the entire DAO workforce. And we're looking to go to 65 to 70% full-time next year. So we're almost reversing so that we can really do things well and take time. So like just the Mystic Lab grant with where we worked with Mystic Lab for Atom as gas token and the revenue share, etc. It was huge amount of work from the legal side, from the financial planning side, etc. And it took us, I would say, 10 to 20x more time than an average grant. And so we said, okay, what if we want to do 3 to 5 like that? It's impossible right now. We cannot do that with the current resource. And that is informing us in moving to the full-time model. The second learning, which I'm very proud of, is the oversight. So the oversight, I think, was the very first time that we pioneered this change, which is, okay, we don't have right now the tooling to have a community elected oversight. So we came with self-appointed. Some people thought it didn't make sense or it was ridiculous. But I can proudly say that it worked really well. It worked exactly as intended. We were able to have strong internal control, zero fraud, a very strong fraud prevention mechanism, very strong internal controls throughout the entire life cycle of the grant. Johnny did a phenomenal job on grantee oversight, The oversight has significant powers and authority. So it has the power to veto a grant, it has the power to discontinue an existing grant, and it also has the power to revoke any AADAO member, including myself or Better Future, in case of a serious misconduct, like, for example, profound incompetence or suspicion of strong suspicion of major conflict of interest, etc. So now for next year, what we want to do is go one step further with the oversight, and this is very important for the audience to know, because we've been said the community wants more involvement in decision making and in oversight. And so what we want to do, and then we can, maybe that's a bridge to talk about next year, our proposal for next year. But one of the strongest element of this proposal for next year, following the feedback from the community, is that we're going to have 3 members on the oversight, and one of them is going to be community elected, so governance elected. We're going to do it the way Osmosis chose their Ethereum bridge between Axeler and the others. So let's say that there are 3 candidates or 4 candidates that wants to join the oversight. They will do their own campaign on the forum, say why they think they're going to be a good fit as oversight on AADAO, how they can represent best the interest of the hub, and then just do like proposals on chain, and the one with the highest voting outcome is elected, and then goes work hand in hand. And so that's a way for us to make sure that the hub has proper representativity within AADAO, because at the end of the day, we are fully owned, fully funded by the Atom community. So it's very fair that the oversight is coming from the community itself.
Yeah, I would say that from oversight, some of the challenges were just laying the foundational policies, initially here, because we didn't really have any background in the Cosmos hub or grants programs to lay these foundations. And working with a team that is closely involved with Cosmos and tied with many protocols, many builders, there can be potential areas of conflict of interest. So we're always monitoring those aspects, whether it comes to switching grant reviewers or talking to the teams, or even vetoing at some point, or even choosing to stop funding. So it's been a learning experience where we've adapted our policies to better reflect ongoing grants, to minimize as much error as possible, I would say. But for me, ideally, so part of oversight, I've been thankful to have like Patricia and Julianne, which now got replaced by Facundo. But Patricia has been pivotal in managing the finances and aligning the policies, because she comes from like a traditional finance world where she's completely neutral to what happens in Cosmos, has no relationships or any conflicts of interest there. But and then we had Julianne, who was the technical lead, which reviewed a lot of grants, checked the GitHub, see if there was anything missing, see if the teams were completing. So like I had a great team behind me to kind of work and manage how these grants are operating. But being stretched, like Yusuf says, was also a major challenge in terms of just having a lot of resource dedicating to these teams, because even though you're doing grant reviews, you feel like you're a part of each team that the batches are awarded. So that means that you're working with their challenges. Their challenges become your challenges, and then you have to work to overcome them or decide whether to cut the team completely. And fortunately, there hasn't been many instances for that, but dedicating a lot of the resources like that sometimes involve more time than even what the full time allocated. So that's something that we're working towards fixing in the next term, in terms of having more proximity and more, I guess more function to the grant reviewers, in terms of having them follow the team through the entire course. So yeah, it's been challenging, but it's also been very rewarding at the same time, because you play a direct part in their success.